Well, good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Slay, and I'm um, talking to you right now about reading 380. Sorry for the confusion. I got to get my courses straight. We are now entering Module 4. So we are halfway through the semester and going to be winding it up pretty soon. So Module 4 is about comprehension, assessment, and text-dependent questions. Questioning is a huge part of digging deeper and asking students to read and think critically. So let me take you through a little bit of a tour of what you're going to be involved in this time around. So the first thing is I'll post this video that I'm making here with you right now shortly, and I'll be posting it right here. Then what you'll notice, you have a series of dates and things that follow the same format that you're quite accustomed to already doing. Let me double check on this digital literacy survey. I think we're done with digital literacy, so I don't think you're going to have to do that. So let me make sure to take that off of there. But you do have 2 reading tasks, which are listed down below. They have to do with reading comprehension from the textbook, this is disciplinary literacy that, of course, you can access in the library. And then you'll be looking at chapter 4, which has to do in inquiry within the disciplines. So that's one of my favorite topics within the reading field. There's 2 Padlet discussions as well. And there's the dates that you'll need to have. And I will show you all of that in just a second. Then you'll be, of course, be responding to each other as well as you move through the Padlet questions, and your current moderator, whoever signed up for that, will be in charge of managing your discussions. And then finally, you'll have a CPP collaborative performance project. So let's look at some of the readings. Here you're going to see it has the 2 readings with some questions to help guide your thinking before, during, and after reading. Remember, those are good reading practices. You've also got, here's some information about accessing the book through the textbook, through the library, excuse me. I'm sorry, my nose is nasally because I have been battling something since the middle of spring break. I believe it's just allergies, but man, they hit me hard this year. So I'm just full of all kinds of stuff in my nose, and I apologize. It doesn't sound very good, and it makes my head a little cloudy, or maybe it's the medicine I'm taking. But to move back into what we're doing, here you're going to find a chart that you saw before, where the pages that refer to your particular discipline in those chapters are marked here, so that allows you to focus your attention a little bit better. Here we move into the Padlet discussions, and here's the links, the same thing that we've done before for each one of your disciplines. And then finally, we move into the CPP. So let me scroll to the top of the screen for just a second so I can walk you over to the Padlet. Here we go. I'm just going to show you one of them. Remember the questions that we put here in this purple box. These questions should help your discussion leaders to help draw out the conversation. Don't forget to go back and check on these and use these to help prompt the discussion. Here in Module 4, you'll find the first one, supporting comprehension. At the beginning of the course, we were warned about overteaching strategies, yet we knew students needed support to read. Think about how you build in supports during, before, during, and after, just like one of the things that I just asked you to think about in your discipline, and that is focused on the text at hand and not on the strategy itself. But how can you use one of the strategies from the reading to support the comprehension in your discipline? So remember, every discipline reads a little differently. So please give an example here. All right, so you'll find some of the material that you're going to read about should help you. You're going to have to be specific with your examples. Number 2 is inquiry related. So during the reading and in the lesson that goes with the CPP inquiry, it is being used in 2 very different ways. The chapter develops inquiries with students in authentic project-based learning, while the CPP inquiry is based on more building powerful questions to help students think deeply about their learning. So complete a 3-2-1 about inquiry based on the two approaches. 3-2-1 is a strategy which I will show you. It can be modified in a number of ways, but here's how we're going to use it here. List 3 things that you learned about inquiry in this module. 2, list 2 things you will use in your classroom when you become a teacher. And 1, list 1 question you still have about this idea of teaching through inquiry. So each one of these questions focuses on the 2 different chapters. And this one asks for very specific strategies related to what you read, and then based on your particular discipline. And then this one is inquiry based on that concept of inquiry overall for your particular discipline. So you'll notice again that these are specific to your particular disciplines as you find your particular Padlet. So let's see. Yep, I think that should cover all the Padlet information that you need to know about for now. Let's now move back into module 4. Let's see, we just talked about the readings. And there's the Padlets. So now I want to talk a little bit about the collaborative performance project, the assessment and text-dependent questions. This one's going to be a little bit different. You're going to continue to work in a lesson plan. However, this time you're going to be adding text-dependent questions and reviewing the assessments again. So in this module, you'll be adding your 3rd plan to our 2 collaborative lesson plans. So this means you're going to be writing another one for modules 2 and 3. We will now use what we've learned about inquiry and assessment from chapter 4 to evaluate and revise our assessments. And then we'll learn and use the text-dependent question strategy to write leveled questions for our lesson. This time, though, this is what's highlighted in red. This is what's different. You're going to be incorporating the use of open AI, such as, I'm sure you've heard of this, ChatGPT. Google uses Bard. There's other ones as well. You're going to use that technology to create the rubrics and the questions for our lesson plan. So in this new element, you will use these online tools in a critical way, which is part of curriculum literacy. We want to develop this in your minds, as well as what you will do with your students, to evaluate the potential for its appropriate use as a teacher. So new twist. And then I think that as you continue to read down, you'll see very specific examples about how to use that. You're going to be also working on assessments in this particular lesson plan. You'll work with your partners to review and evaluate your assessments on your lesson plans. Do you need to make changes based on what you've already read in this course? Yes. You'll need to revise your evaluations and then check its alignment with the objectives and TEKS to make sure that you do not need to make any changes, and make sure that they're aligned. It's absolutely essential that everything's aligned. This is where your collaborative group will work together to prompt an open AI platform for a rubric or assessment question that you might need. Use the following guidelines to prompt the ChatGPT. So there are some examples in here that are things you would specifically put into GPT, excuse me, or something else. Even if you don't use an assessment, your group needs to participate in this activity. I can think of a couple of instances where the assessment is more visual than it might be. It might be something that might be a little bit different because of the nature of your discipline. So you can reach out to me if you have questions about that. So instructions, tell it, meaning ChatGPT, what you want, that you want a rubric or a test question or whatever you need for the assessment. What class and what grade level are you using? And what skills or learning are you assessing? And how much criteria do you want in your rubric? How many questions do you need? ChatGPT will give you a rubric based on what you ask it to do. These are some suggestions for writing your prompt, and you can, of course, adjust them as needed to fit your particular purpose. this is important because you're now going back to what some of the things you've already written. Please highlight any changes you make to your assessments in your plans in yellow. Highlight, don't type it in yellow, use the highlighter. Okay, and then finally in your collaborative group, discuss what responses are acceptable for your assessments and what you will do for students who do not meet the standards. So you have to think a little step further. What happens if they are failing? What will you do to remediate? Here's the section for the text-dependent questions. Please next print or access a copy of the text from Michael Phillips, The White Metropolis, Race, Ethnicity, and Religion in Dallas, 1841 to 2001. The text is below. Use this to follow along on a particular video where you see an example of text-dependent questions being used. So this is the link to that model. Dr. Ravel, you created this video when she used this with a particular class that she was teaching, and it's a great model. So I thought I would leave that in there for you because I think you'll find it useful. So it gives you a little background and some context. Please participate with the students in the class that you're observing with the particular document that you've downloaded so that you get a sense of how this is, what it looks like and how you can apply it to your own context. Follow these guidelines. What types of questions are being asked? Think about that. How does the instructor engage the participants with the questions? How might the instructor authentically assess the engagement and learning of the students? You'll hear those questions again. So here's the video, and then you move on, and then you're in the text-dependent question area. You should know that Doug Fisher and Nancy Fry created this, the title of this particular strategy called Text-Dependent Questions. There's a whole book that they wrote about it called Text-Dependent Questions, Pathways to Close and Critical Reading. And then they break these kinds of questions into 4 levels. Level 1 is general understanding and key details. Remember, text-dependent means that the answers are found in the text. It's dependent on your understanding and use and ability to interact with the text. That doesn't mean they're all level 1 questions, though. So usually general understanding and key details are things that you're going to go find and circle and underline and find right smack in the text. Level 2 has to do with vocabulary, structure, and the author's craft. Well, that's dependent on you understanding and reading the text, but it's not necessarily going to be a direct response from the text. You have to understand structure and author's craft, and of course, have a good sense of vocabulary as well. So you'll see in the video that Dr. Ravel talks a little bit about how vocabulary is included to support this. Remember, everything we do in our teaching, especially in reading instruction, is set up with a sense of supports. And we use that word, supports. How are you going to, what supports will you offer your student? That could be through questioning, it could be through prompting, it could be through a note catcher, it could be through an anchor chart, and I think I've mentioned some of those things to you in our meetings, for example. So level 3, here's level 3, author's purpose and intertextual connections. Ooh, that's a big word. So think about it. Author's purpose, why did the author write this text? Well, he's not going to tell you, I wrote this text to do this, but he will give, or he or she will provide information through context that helps you understand the purpose for the text. And then the intertextual connections are texts between one text and another. This is where someone who is reading the news and also reading a novel might make connections between and across text, the textbook versus an article from a journal, for example, a scholastic magazine that they might read in school. Level 4 is opinion with evidence or argument. So think about a level 4. Now you're really getting into some higher thinking questions. So you'll be asking questions that allow the readers to provide opinions, create an argument based upon evidence that they draw from the text. Some of this may start sounding a little bit familiar as you start to think about the STAR test and how we have the short answer, short constructed response. So many of those require students to think at a high level, to make connections across texts, between things they've learned in one class and another, and to be able to use high levels of thinking, vocabulary, and understand how the text is written in order to create and develop their answers. So these 4 types of questions will support their ability to do that. Here are the questions that Dr. Ravel used in the video. Determine which level each question belongs to. So here's a list of the 10 or 11 questions that she used. So discuss this and think about how it's being applied and which level it applies to, 1, 2, 3, or 4, when you watch the video. The video, I'm going to say, you're going to need to sit down with your group and give yourselves a chance to really think and talk about it, because it's about a 35-minute video, so you'll need to give yourself some time. Don't just read this. Do study the work that she provided for you. Then there's the debriefing. The instruction started with well, actually, I'm not going to read this to you, because after you watch the video, you can read this to really understand what she did, so that you can check your own understanding based on the discussion you have. Remember, you'll gain more from it by going through the steps than just reading this document. And then, of course, something I just mentioned to you is that this close reading, it's called close reading strategy. Text-dependent questioning is a close reading strategy. It can be used in any content area, so it applies to all of you, but to keep the text short, so no more than a page, and find a stimulating piece of text and dig deep. So if you did not include a text in your lesson plans, you're going to need to. You'll have to go back and find one to include. And remember that there's a broad definition of what text is all about. It's not just a piece of reading simply like what we're saying. It can be music. There's lots of things that we read that apply to your discipline, but you do have to apply these 4 levels of questioning to your lesson plan. So, and now we have something new here. So add questions to your lesson plan based on that text. This is the second place where we will use OpenAI. So you'll use ChatGPT again. Follow the prompting format above, asking for questions and evaluating the quality and the level of questions your team receives. Remember, this is really important to understand. ChatGPT, Bard, and any of these other platforms that are out there, and there's many of them, they are as good as what you accept from them. They're not all perfect. They do make mistakes, and they're not accurate. So you can't depend on it giving you. It helps you move a little bit faster. It gives you ideas and thoughts and suggestions, and then you have to revise and edit. And a lot of people will tell you that if you use only what they have verbatim, it makes you look silly, because it sounds like, well, that's not the way I write, or it's written in such a pretentious way that it doesn't sound like natural language. So do be careful that you align this to your audience and to you as writers, and how you will use what ChatGPT gives you. So, but we are giving you permission to use it because it's a good tool if you use it appropriately and ethically. So you're going to identify questions in your lesson plans, and your text should be authentic to your content. Remember that texts take on many forms, as I just mentioned. It can be written, video, page of music, lots of different things. Number 2, with your group, pull out your lesson plan and write text-dependent questions for the texts in your lesson plans. Be sure to label and include in your questions all 4 levels. Number your questions. Okay. Now look at your lessons, and where would the questions fit? In parentheses, put the question numbers into the lessons where you would ask them. Highlight the notations in the text in yellow, and then turn in your updated collaborative lesson plans as an assignment. Only one person in the group needs to turn it in for the group, of course, and be sure that the group members' names are on the top, below a copy of the format. So here you're going to move through, and I'm reflecting on what I said early on. I think we've only written 2 lesson plans at this point. So I think those are the 2 that you need to revise and resubmit for this particular exercise. So here it shows you where you're going to do the yellow part. and follow these yellow prompts. You've got the questions, and there's something about inserting the numbers to the question. So you might say question 1, question 2, and then in the parentheses, make sure that you have the text level. You want to make sure that those things all correlate so that we understand what you're thinking about. And then review and revise your assessments based on your new understandings from having read the chapters in the book. Make sure that everything aligns. So really, you're working on just this section on things that you've already written that you're revising and resubmitting, and you are highlighting in yellow the areas that you change. Here's that article that I mentioned to follow along in that other video. And this is where you're going to submit your things. And then, of course, you will now sign up. We didn't in Module 3 sign up for a conference, but this will be our last conference. So there's a sign up link. I think you will see here. I've this time tried to outline the days in different colors to make it easier for you to see. Color does magic for us sometimes. And I will be in the field a lot that week, so I've tried to blot out to provide times when I hope to be available. According to also what you've signed up for in the past, since I've begun to see some of your routines. And what else do we have here? Then, of course, you have to do your rubrics. I mean, here's the rubric to fall in line with your reflective quiz. So that's it in a nutshell. I will post this video shortly, and good luck and have a wonderful module. Let me know how I can help you know where to find me. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.